All right, well, thank you there. Um, yeah, this is exciting. This is the first event of something new. I'm not sure exactly what music everyone heard on the introduction, but given the email that went out, I'm thinking it should have been either the theme music or the da 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 of Jaws, or potentially Shark Baby. I'm not sure exactly where we went. Uh, Thank you to uh, who is joining me today. It's Brad Hart and Matt Grigsby. We also have Jeremy, who's the voice you already heard. He's kind of the magic behind the scenes, and he's helping produce this for us as well. I wanted to begin with first sort of explaining what this event is, or maybe how it came to be. It's actually an idea that I had quite a while ago, that I had pitched to the C&E marketing team. And we were actually, at least in our minds at that time, a little limited technically in being able to execute a podcast type event. I didn't really want to run down the deep, dark rabbit holes of everything's technical specifications, but really what I wanted to do is have a nice general conversation um, about different things, emerging markets or trends, changes in the industry, dealing with current events that are happening in factory automation and with our customers. I've been in factory automation since 1995, and I've lived a bunch of different lives, so I see things from different places, and I'm very honored to sit in the position I do now with C&E, where I get to have a lot of conversations both with customers and with the team of salespeople and specialists. And it's very interesting to me how people deal with some of these emerging trends and changes in different aspects and how they view things differently. And I thought it would be a very interesting thing to have a podcast where we just sort of bring that to light. And that's what the event is. Today's topic for episode 1 is very loosely, but it's based on Siemens' new Somatic micro drive. If you haven't heard of this drive, it's a 24 to 48 volt DC small drive with motors. The drive and motor combination is intended to range between 100 and 1,000 watts. Now, that's about as deep as I really want to get into this technically. Typically, when you see faces like Brad Hart, an automation specialist, Matt Grigsby, a motion specialist, we are raring and ready to go with the hows to do things with these products. But my question that I want to begin with is very much on the why. So with that, gentlemen, why did Siemens come out with this product, or why do you think they came out with this product?
I mean, are you talking about this product right here? Actually, it's not this product, but it's about that form factor. If I get in the picture just right, I don't want it to disappear, but that's about the size of this drive, the PDC 100. So that's about as technical I'm going to get on the actual dimensioning of that. How about that? All right. So the PDC 100, gosh, when I heard about this, I was like, okay, why, like you're saying, why would they come out with a product like this? And the only thing I could think of really is the emerging market that we've been playing in for a little bit of time now with the mirror robots, and now we have the auto guide, which is they're both wonderful products. The AMRs, right? Getting around the factory, rethinking how manufacturers go to market and be able to get their products out, right? And that's the area where I see this product being used.
So on that, why do you think it's a great fit there? Why does that help that AMR AGV realm?
Well, I mean, the AMRs, the automated mobile robots, right? They're moving products from point A to point B. Okay, and yes, this little grocery cart, if we will, could come up and stop in front of you, and you can manually take product, right, and place it onto this AMR, and then maybe press a button, and then it goes on along its merry way, right? Either following a wire in the ground or using some mapping utility, right? So it kind of drives itself. We're looking at driving cars in the future, but really, I mean, with this PDC 100, it's low voltage. It's voltage that allows it to be able to be powered from the mobile robot itself. Okay. And so if you have like powered rollers that can move product from a production line onto the AMR, then that helps to automate some things. You mentioned, 100 watts to 1,000 watts. That may not seem like a lot of power though, but you may want to be able to position a box of products or something onto the AMR so that it doesn't accidentally shift off, right? So you may want to raise up some clamps. And typically you may use like a little small air cylinder, like a Koganei air cylinder. Well, maybe you don't want to have compressed air and all those on an AMR. It just doesn't make sense. So what do? You put a small little DC motor on there, right, to do the action that an air cylinder will. And now you can clamp up and hold a product into position, or whatever automation you want to dream of, this appliance that can go on top of these little mobile robots. That's where I see this product being used.
Sure. So, Matt, a lot of what Brad just said there is really very motion centric. What's your feeling for what would be in place today? I mean, I know that AMR AGV is sort of emerging as is, and I know some of the applications that we've come across. That's often the hurdle is we certainly can navigate and move around, but really the nuts and bolts of the conversations with the customers tend to be more about how do we handle their specific product at either end. What are you seeing being a solution to those without a product like this?
Without a product like this, there would be it would be a lot more stationary. I think it'd be much more difficult to move around. Like Brad suggesting, adding this stuff on top. So you can actually add the pick and places, the robots, that type of thing on top of the unit that will move around instead of driving up to it. So you have more of a full, say, automation cell almost cruising around the factory floor instead of just having materials coming in and out to the cells. And a lot of what Siemens offers here, I think, is safety. They have a lot of nice safety features there compared to, I think, a lot of the product out there. So they have beyond safe torque, they have safe limited speed, or beyond safe stop. They have safe torque, safe limited speed, safe motion areas that you can use there. So they add a lot of that to it also.
Interesting. What any other ideas or any other thing that you see is great about this? I have an idea, but I'm curious where you guys might go.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is the power on a mobile robot, right? You don't have AC power, right? It's all DC power. And typically you got things that may be around, we do automation typically at 24 volt DC, right? And so
Sure.
These mobile robots have 24 volts. They may have 48 volts, but they're all in that low voltage range. So you're beneath the 50 volt limit, right? That requires you to put on a suit for servicing electrical equipment.
That's exactly one of the ideas that I sort of ran down a little bit. And in an effort, we stay so very product centric in our roles. In an effort to avoid that, I feel like as an X-Motion guy, Siemens has always sort of shined in that arc flash arena, and that's because what many customers will complain about, the control unit is often separated from the muscle or the other drive piece. They do that so that it can be in an arc flash cabinet. In this case, you're suggesting that just because the whole thing is of low voltage, or that extra low voltage class, 60 volts and below, and this is a rabbit hole that's quite interesting. And I'm not sure 100% what the impacts are. I spent the better part of yesterday in preparation for this event looking for what PPE and requirement differences there are. And in truth, I'm having a heck of a time finding things on the DC side. So most of the NFPA standards, one of the things that I came across is it still becomes critical to do that arc risk assessment. You still have to do those things because at 100 watts, even at 48 volts, there's still substantial current there that we're starting to deal with, and that's one of the things that I thought was interesting. That was the first thing I thought was, oh, this is a huge benefit for arc flash, and I believe that to be true. I think at this low potential, there's huge savings there, but it certainly doesn't relinquish someone from still needing to do all of those steps that you should do for going into any cabinet. So I guess I'm not sure exactly what I'm asking there, but are you guys seeing just sort of a, well, that's a low voltage, I don't need to worry about arc flash, or maybe a different path here? Are you seeing customers still step up and recognize that they need to be doing the calculations based on the risk, even in the event of some of these low voltage carriers?
I think that I see customers looking at that voltage and just thinking, oh, it's low voltage. And you brought up a very valid point. This is still a drive. We need torque here. So we are going to see that higher amperage here compared to like 24 volt DC, like a PLC, power supply to a PLC, power supply to your inputs and outputs. That's all extremely low amperage compared to a drive.
Not. Are we still live? I saw a pretty big glitch there.
Corona's making her appearance again. Gosh darn it.
Wow, that got in my head there a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, so another aspect of that, you talked about that we still need torque. I'm really interested to see where this goes. I agree with you completely, Brad. To me, when I saw this product, I actually got really excited. I made sure our own Dana Poling was aware of it, because I think it really does marry and go very well with some of the AMR, AVG, and some of them that robotic side. That being said, I also asked him what the typical jump on accessory voltage and current limitations are for most of those vehicles, and his response was that it is right in the wheelhouse of that 24 or 48 volts. That's awesome. Unfortunately, he said it's typically between 4 and 10 amps, which is absolutely fine for these smaller motors. But when we start seeing products that come out for those larger torque needs, those 1,000 watters, and you're dealing with over 20 amps, it'll be interesting how we go full circle. And if this product, that I think was very much in response to the emerging trends of the AMR AVG, if it doesn't turn around and make changes back with the vehicle itself, so that we can add on that automation. Any other markets you guys think where this fits well? I know Siemens outlined one, but I personally don't have experience there, and that's the ALV with the ELV. They're talking about a lot of medical and consumer side with this product. Are you seeing any traction there?
It's one of those industries that I don't necessarily work with. I mean, the pharmaceutical, I know that we do a lot with automotive, food and beverage, and other industries, but that is curious about the medical industry being one. With the safety aspect, you're working in around the human body, right? Make sure you come out alive. But again, this is my thinking is, and this is where everybody's networking, right? For the most part, a large part of manufacturers networking. And what I truly see is people, the ownership, management, thinking, how can we do things differently, right? When we all come back to work and thinking forward. And another, where I think is this is going, are an assembly line, right? The assembly line that has fixed conveyors that's mounted to the floor, right? And if you ever have to retool or rework your factory floor because of a different product, that all takes time and money. And I think if you have a mobile assembly line where each unit is its own assembly as it's moving throughout the process, then you're no longer anchored. You can reroute, lay out your factory floor with almost little to no effort. Okay, and now you can do things such as small batch production. And you talk about the emerging markets, emerging technologies. I see this being used together with things such as 5G, right? Industrial 5G. Siemens has been working on that back in 2019. Remote RTLS, right? Real-time locating systems, right? You want to know where your assembly is throughout the process. And today you're using things such as RFID to be able to track things through the process. Well, if it's mobile, then there's other technologies that exist today to be able to allow you to determine where that part is in manufacturing. Then you can tell your client, hey, I'm 10% built. Hey, I'm 100% built. It's ready to ship. You get that real-time information.
Yeah, that's very prevalent. I think you're talking about mobile cells. In a previous life, I worked for a plastics company, and that's absolutely what we did with everything. Very, very few times did we have a cell that stayed put. Things needed to be mobile. We pulled things in and out. They pull a mold out of an injection molding machine. It goes and sits for a week and a half while something else goes in. So everything needed to be easy to put in place and to pull back out.
Right. So I waffled on there a bit when I jumped into that last question. I appreciate you both actually answering both pieces of it, and I hadn't considered it. It sounded, let me make sure I understood a piece of what you were saying there. I hadn't considered this. You're actually saying that because this is lower voltage and a little bit more mobile, that it's much easier to just make these small satellite cells and even make that piece of the cell move around in the facility, not so much on a vehicle, but just even on a table or cart. Am I understanding that correct?
Yeah, that's how I feel. I mean, you go into some of these steel mills today, right? And they're moving coils of steel around from point A to point B, and some of those are already AVGs or AMRs doing that, right? So I know back to the point you mentioned earlier about some of these units only having so much current available on the unit. Well, who says we're to be limited to 10 amps or 20 amps, right? These things could be built massively, and you can have a lot of power. Right. But then what do you do about charging, right? How do you keep these mobile assembly units charged? Well, if you think about to what some cities are doing with, with personal transportation, with buses, it's TARC is what's called here in Louisville, right? Where they pull up and they have the inductive charging overhead, right, to charge the bus, charge the battery. So, I see something like that possibly coming into play on the factory floor. So it allows your production line to keep moving to true, if you want to have a lights out facility. I mean, if you got these inductive charging stations, then yeah, I mean, nothing's going to stop you from continuously running 24/7.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I really hadn't thought that. I hadn't thought about those views. But yeah, when you're talking about 1,000 watts, the minute you said steel mill, I know it was more of an idea. Whenever I think that industry, I think big. But 1,000 watts isn't a tiny motor, right? That's not something small, especially when you're talking about moving product or some of that smaller manufacturing. Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I think from what I've seen with a lot of it and looking at it, the motors that go hand in hand with these drives, you're talking about a lot of gear units. So you're buying a lot of motors with a gear unit attached already. So, you've got 3,000 RPM, you're adding your gear unit to it. So you still have significant speed there, but much more torque. So, it's that balance, that play between how much speed you need and how much torque you need. So,
right. And of course, to that, I know we're trying to avoid product as much as possible, but when I'm talking about this product, at least with Siemens, is still very much in its infancy stage, right? We're currently limited to that 100-watt drive and motors associated with it. That full family that will ultimately fill out into 1,000 watts isn't quite here yet. So there's time for everyone, I guess, maybe to adapt to it when it comes out. I don't know. Jeremy, do we have any questions or anything that has come in through any of the panels or anything there? I'll throw that out to the gentleman first. Matt, what do you think?
I think so. I think that industry in general has kind of been looking more that direction. And you just see a lot of articles popping up now about that, about the industry moving to more automation and less employee based, a physical person in the plant. And this is a great example of an excellent use of it. This is going to happen again eventually. It's something that we can't stop yet. We can't stop Mother Nature from these things happening. So I think we're definitely going to move in this direction.
Yeah, I've already seen it happen in a few locations. Some of our clients, where a year ago they didn't have any AVGs or AMRs, and recent visits here over the past 3 months, when you still could get in to visit, I've seen AGVs, AMRs being utilized, and so manufacturers and users, they are moving towards that technology, and it's only going to grow in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think that there's many aspects of manufacturing in the world that are going to be different after this event. I think everyone is learning somewhat as we start to turn, and I believe every state and the nation as a whole is starting to turn towards how do we get restarted again. I think we are looking more at not only how do we get restarted, but how do we do it in a way that we still keep people separated, we still keep people safe. And automation and robotics in general, I think, are going to become much more prevalent. Prior to this, it's unfortunate how many people are laid off and out of work right now, but prior to this event, unemployment was so low that it was hard to find people in the factory to help, right? So a lot of our customers were saying, I don't want to automate. I want to hire people, but I can't get people to show up. I can't keep enough people on my floor, and they were looking to automation for that purpose. I think it's entirely likely that that we lean more on automation as a whole, and that we lean more on these products as we come out, not only to address that employment situation that I think will return, but also do so in a way that if an event were to happen like this, or heaven forbid this COVID bug makes a second swing, we are already keeping people separated. It's pretty easy to have these vehicles go back and forth. Another thing that popped into my head is we have been throwing out two acronyms quite a bit, and it dawned on me that a good portion of the audience, or some of the audience, may not know exactly what we're talking about or what the difference is. So when we say AMR, that is an automated or automatic mobile robot, and it's often commonly pooled with the AGV, which is an automated or automatic guided vehicle. The main difference between the two is that the guided vehicle has some mechanism in the floor or something that guides it along a predictable path, whereas the AMR uses different tools, vision, laser, Wi-Fi, sometimes hybrids of all of them, to find a path between 2 points. So it uses a little bit of AI to avoid people, places, and things, to find paths between the two. So if you didn't know those two acronyms, it's come up quite a bit in our conversation. I apologize. That's what those two things are. So what other thoughts you guys have with this product or any of the topics that we talked about?
Well, when we first picked up the mirror line, the one video that we kept seeing lots of, and that was the AMR being used in a hospital setting, right? As it was maybe transporting sterile products, from one nursing station maybe to a surgical area, and the fact that there was already automation in addition to the mirror to be able to call an elevator, right? Go up to an elevator, call it using, let's say, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi technology. When the elevator came down, opened up its doors, it would go in, move up to the next level, and then file right out. So, that may give rise to the idea where, several years ago, you may have had several floors, back to the old forward assembly lines, you had 2, 3, or more floors where you're assembling these, Model A, Model T vehicles, right? Well, because you can call elevators and move products from floor to floor, you're no longer having to build horizontal. You can still build your factory floor vertical again. So in places where you may not have a lot of real estate, vertical factories could be a thing again.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Jeremy passed along another question to me that actually came in from the live chat. It's not exactly on our topic, and I actually quite love that. So thank you, whoever asked this. It means it's getting your gears turning, and I like that very much. The question is, what do you think about IIoT replacing the PLC in the near future?
You know, I don't think it's going to replace the PLC. I think it's a complement to the PLC, right? With edge devices, you know, we've got the Siemens PLCs today that is the edge device where it can go straight to the cloud, but it's not really good use of the resources of the controllers. So this is a market that's been going on now for a few years, and the technology is just growing and growing. There's lots of products out there. I think IIoT is only going to be a complement to the AMRs, and with the the DC controllers being able to give you that real-time information right to the cloud, that a client can go and connect to the cloud, right? So like what we do when we're going on Amazon and we're shopping or whatever the case is, right? It's getting that real-time information, right? So IIoT is going to be one of those components that goes together with all these emerging technologies, right? To make up the whole system, right? The whole machine, the whole assembly.
And the acronym IIoT, Brad?
Thank you. Industrial Internet of Things, or
Sure.
Industry 4.0 for short.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
My only thoughts, especially, I agree with Brad completely. But as far as anything in the near future, there are just a lot of factories out there that are still deathly afraid of that. Deathly afraid of security. They don't have good security on their industrial Ethernet to begin with, and I'm not seeing a lot of them connect that to their business networks, and should be able to access that from outside. Without going into details, like Brad was saying, we do have some good products that can do that securely, and we have people that understand the security issues there. But I think a lot of people are still afraid of that.
Yeah, there's several companies I've visited with of the past year that they are going through that process, that struggle, if you will, to kind of figure out what makes sense. And you have, IT and OT, right? There's always that line in the sand on who has control of what's going on the network. And so, yeah, there's more layers of security being applied now in these manufacturing facilities, and everybody's doing it a little bit differently, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, to your point, Matt, yes, IIoT, it may be black magic to a few. It could be a great complement to many. So everybody has to evaluate it to see if it really works for them.
Yeah, this is absolutely the industrial internets, and this IIoT Industry 4.0 has been an area of frankly great weakness for me. I'm an old dog, and I've stepped into this role, and even in motion, I didn't get that much opportunity to dive that deeply into this. When I stepped into this position, that was one of the first things I did. I actually sat down with almost all the automation specialists just to get my head around what this was and where it fit. And the only thing I see is that it's a complement to a total solution, right? If I thought there was any place that it replaces, I do think that IIoT Industry 4.0 has the potential to not replace, but it's certainly a new way of doing what a lot of people have done with light SCADA systems. But when it comes to the PLC, I certainly feel like if I have a facility, and this is old dog, this is conspiracy theory Jay, right? This is the paranoia guy. I want my facility, it might be ideal to get information about a product upstream, downstream from another facility or something like that. I would like to have that information. I would love that to be automated through those tools. But when it comes to just making product, I still kind of want something running off the grid, so to speak, and out there just doing its thing, especially when you have, I don't know, it's absolutely a, I guess I play into that. I understand the customers that say, I don't want to put my machine on the network. I don't want to do that. And I think as long as you have that, the PLC is always going to have a place, right? And until we permanently break down, I think we're a long way from it. I think we're starting, but until we break down what you mentioned, that IT and factory floor rub and understanding of the needs, man, I just I don't know that I see that changing. You guys think I said anything wrong there? I definitely went off on an unsecure area.
I agree.
Yeah, the thing is like, okay, if there's an issue because of an Ethernet miscommunication, whatever, duplicate IP address on the factory floor, because it conflicts with the office environment, because somebody decided to plug an Ethernet cable into the switch. Next thing you know, you bridge two networks together. Who has to get the factory floor back up and running? It's not IT. They don't care. It's up to the technician, the engineer on the floor, right? They're the ones that have to make the product. So that's where the money's made, right? So OT should have I think a greater emphasis in being able to take ownership of a network, really. And IT and OT truly need to come together and work together so they have understanding what each other's roles are, so that IT can have an appreciation of what goes on the factory floor.
Right. We have another question from Carson Whitaker. What problems do you foresee in the immediate future when facilities are being brought back online as the economy reopens? Brad, why don't you lead off on this one?
It doesn't matter if you're shut down for a month or shut down for a weekend. There's always something that rears its ugly head, be it that a PLC doesn't come up in run mode, right? There's always something that happens. So we always get these, right? On Monday morning, people calling in, hey, I need this part. Do you have it? Because we're down. Right. And it's just, unfortunately, they just don't have a part stocked on the shelf. So it's just making sure that they have the foresight and the planning to have those critical spares on their shelves. Right.
Matt?
Yeah, same thing. You get PLCs, old PLCs with batteries in them, old equipment, old drives, where the capacitors are, not up to par anymore. And, they're discharging and everybody goes and throws on a switch and bad things happen. So, it's just especially hard on older equipment, when they've been down this long and then powered back up, they groan a lot.
Yeah, I think from a, and I'll address specifically the piece of this question that says the facilities as the economy reopens, right? And I think that triggers a thought in my mind that I think it's entirely likely that we see this sort of come in waves, so to speak. We're going to try to start these factories back up, and you're going to have those electrical issues with dead batteries and bad pre-charge capacitors and all those kind of things. It's going to get a little bit crazy. But because not every facility is restarting, and we're very much in a global economy now, we're sort of on the tail end, at least, of many countries starting to ramp back up. But I think you're going to see still product issues with getting components for things for quite some time. I think there's going to be ripple effects. And then the other thing is, and I think that's much more lasting out of all of this, is going to be very much on the economic and the actual demand for some of these products, right? While this particular instance is very new to all of us. In fact, I don't know there's no one that I can talk to that has lived through something like this, right? I suppose you could lean on if you've still got some grandparents or great grandparents that have been through a war and some of those efforts, but this came on so fast and has made no sense that, that's not the real thing. It's that I don't want to spend myself. I don't want to go buy things. If I have money, I'm burying it in the backyard in a sock. Like I'm that will have ripple effects for some time until people can feel secured again. And as long as I don't want to play that card, but as long as in the media and the news we continue talking about second waves and third waves, it's going to have people in that fear mode and not ready to try to step forward and out. To me, that's a much bigger concern. So I would say stay optimistic, wash your doggone hands, try to be healthy, and just get back at it like it didn't happen, and hopefully we can make it all go away rather quickly.
Yeah, and to add to that, you definitely want to, for those businesses, those small businesses are open in your community. I mean, definitely patronize those facilities. I mean, I went and got donuts over the weekend for the best donut shop in Louisville, right? Norris Donuts. I went to the best dive bar in Louisville, Bambi Bar, and got the great burgers, right, and cheese balls. So definitely want to help keep those folks afloat because that helps everybody. That helps the community.
Right. I will say I was starting to hit the back nine. I just saw Jeremy hit me with a question. He's having some mic troubles. He typed up a question that we've got one coming in, so I will wait for that. In the meanwhile, I will say both of you gentlemen segued into what episode 2, or what I think episode 2 will encompass, and that's going to be dealing with obsolescence in the factory. It's something that we see quite a bit. So tune in on that conversation. I'm not sure exactly when that will be, so make sure you're signed up for our emails. You're getting notified for those next topics. But that specific thing might be very fresh on everyone's mind as we start to get things going. And that stall gave me enough time. John Cooper, do you think that this will cause an automation boom? Well, I will start with this one. I think we're going to see a very rapid spike for the aforementioned issues. I think there's going to be a lot of things that need addressed in the very short term. I think long term we're going to see an uptick similar to the 08-09 when things started to come back after that recession. It came back pretty aggressively for some time. I do think we're going to see that because we had a problem with unemployment, meaning that it was so many people were employed and there was a lack of it that we couldn't get people in facilities. So if I was someone large in a facility, as soon as I felt secure enough about spending money, I would turn my eyes into protecting myself from the future or dealing with that employment issue, knowing that eventually that could be a problem again. So I would absolutely be adding automation to my facility and looking at how to do it. I would also be investing in current employees to get trained to keep that automated factory running. The biggest thing from my position that I see is, and honestly, I think one of the biggest holdups to reshoring of manufacturing in America is that I believe that we lack enough skill across the board to keep these new and exponentially technical facilities going. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I'll pass it off to Matt on this one.
I agree with you there completely. I've only been here at CME for a little over a year now, and we always had a very hard time finding technical people. And to find those resources, it's a very competitive market out there for those guys. For so long, people were saying that manufacturing was dead in the United States, everything's going overseas, and it's just not true. And I think that's going to change even more now, so because of these supply issues from other countries that are going to hurt us for a while still, like you were saying. So I think that now is a great time to be that technical guy and to be going to school at tech schools and colleges and trade schools. They're all very necessary and needed, and it's only going to grow from here.
Right.
Yeah, Matt, I definitely agree. It's only going to grow. And like I said, I've been doing this since 1994. And the technology just keeps changing. It keeps changing. I mean, heck, what, 10, 11 years ago, we didn't have, smartphones, right? We had flip phones, and prior to that, we were all on the old landlines. I mean, the technology is always going to continue to evolve. It's always going to grow, and the capabilities, complexities, however you want to determine that. But there's always going to be a need for automation engineers, automation technicians, those folks that have that skilled trade set. And really, I think as a controls engineer, automation engineer, it's only grown. The funnel has just really widened out significantly. I mean, from just PLCs, drives, IOs, HMIs, RFID, robots, vision, RTLS, and so on, right? Industry 4.0. I mean, it's really the engineers becoming a jack of all trades in a sense, right? We're all specialists, right? I'm an automation specialist, Matt, you're motion and drives. And it's great that we are, because it's so hard to get your arms around the entire products, right? The entire technology. So there's a definite need. It's only going to grow.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it looks like we might have, just in the nick of time, Eric Gilhausen, how much automation do you teach your techs? Troubleshooting with PLCs as far as teaching to edit, see more, come on. As far as teaching to edit your program. Well, let me try to read between the lines on this question. We might have had a problem with copy and paste, or maybe I'm not quite understanding. I can say from C&E's perspective, all of our specialists are certified if the vendors that we carry have a certification process. They also are all very experienced in the industry. Most of them have been in and around it for many years. They attend a couple of training events a year to stay on top of it. So, in fact, they're usually in the teaching position, we go to classes and things like that to stay polished, but usually it's on product. The group as a whole, I would put up against really anyone in the nation when it comes to our field. Obviously, our specialty is in the products that we represent at C&E. That's just because we can get our hands on them easier. That being said, we very regularly are dealing with products that we don't sell as well. So guys do dabble in Omron, Allen Bradley, and other things. So we're pretty versed in all of those, and that's because we sell products that work with those PLCs as well. The other side of this question, and I think the one that I would like to get the opinions of Brad and Matt on, would be if this was a customer, this is someone in a facility, so a maintenance person, engineer, that type of person, how much training should you provide those people? And specifically here, teaching to edit your programs, so to speak. So I have a philosophy there that while you may be teaching someone to program the process, even if you're never going to program, what you learn in doing that can be employed to troubleshoot. You first need to really kind of know how to do it yourself before you can start to work backwards through code. It's actually a lot harder to jump into what someone else did, in my opinion. But anyway, to me, the question here, what I'd like you guys to respond to, I'm sorry I'm waffling, is what do you feel like a facility should provide employees to be prepared or to program with PLCs? What do you think that should look like? Brad, go ahead.
Oh gosh, it's a good question, and I see that it's from a plant engineering perspective. How much do you want to teach techs? Well, I mean, I know if I was in a position of a plant engineer, I want to make sure that they are up to speed on the technology that's being used in the facility. And if that's from a programming standpoint, be it a PLC or a drive or whatever the case may be, you need to almost kind of start with the basics, right? There's, the binary system, things like that. It's all really logic, really. I mean, you got to know how to say, hey, if this happens, what's the results, right? Cause and effect.
Right.
It all goes back to logical thinking, more or less, with anything. And then knowing how to use a piece of software, how to get around the building, and knowing what to select. And then you take that thought process, that logic in your mind, and you apply it to the software that's at hand, right? And that's what you do. There's a lot of there's several online classes that you can go and view. I know Siemens has some great online utilities that you can take. We could talk more about this offline, but that's kind of where I would start. Find out where you are with your controllers, take an inventory, and then if you want to talk to us more offline, we can to maybe address what your concerns may be. But that's a big question.
Eric did clarify that it was as a plant engineer, how much should one teach techs? And I will say a mistake that I see, C&E has a workshop, and then we obviously work with getting customers in with training that our vendors have as well. And you need to make sure that it's someone that actually wants to and is regularly in the environment. You can very easily send 20 people, but that doesn't mean bang for your buck from an engineering manager perspective that you're going to get it times 20. You do want people that are going to be regularly in it. And I speak to that specifically because I personally have gone to training classes that were great. I learned a ton, but when I left, I wasn't put in an environment where I was able to use it for 6 months or so. And when the time finally came around, frankly, Elvis had left the building. I had already forgotten what I really needed in that moment. So it's sort of a back and forth. I'm very much a fan of teach the teacher. If you only have enough regular use for one person to be programming regular, maybe you teach two, so you've got a backup. And then as that grows, maybe you rotate that second and do teach the teacher type of things. That lessens the impact to both you financially as an engineer, but it also, I think, can really have better impacts for you if they can actually employ or do that. So if you've got some projects where people are going to do something right away, use it right away. Train everybody. Train as many as you can. But if you really don't, if you're training because of a one day, I think you have to get some extra equipment, or you have to create the environment where they can exercise that, or you may find that that's an effort and an expense that really doesn't ever pay off.
Yeah, something that I would add to that, and talking about how much do you teach them, just because you teach them to program, to make changes, doesn't mean that you have to allow them access to do that. So like Jay was saying, I think it really helps for them to understand programming instead of just troubleshooting. And it's almost easier to teach some of that program compared to trying to teach troubleshooting. And that'll help them think logically if they learn the programming side of it. That doesn't mean that you have to give every tech access to change everything. You can set those things in your PLC, in your HMI. You can set password protections. You can set up different groups of people that can do different things within that environment. But I think that knowledge will help them troubleshoot also.
Right. That is a great question. Hopefully, Eric, we helped a little bit. If we didn't, please reach out to whoever your TC or salesperson is. We can get in touch with you either with myself or the appropriate specialist to try to make sure that your facility is getting everything it needs to stay successful for the future. We really want to make sure we do that. And we're kind of getting long in the tooth here. We're getting towards the back bit. So I'd like to go around with any final thoughts, anything, Brad, Matt, you guys want to add before I do that?
The only thing I can say is that I hope this has been informative, been a great use of your time out there in C&E land and the rest of the world for those who are joining us. I really like this format. I think we've really bounced off some great ideas and really went down some rabbit holes that even the attendees who gave us questions, those are great questions. I mean,
they are.
Yeah. And, one thing I just want to add, make sure you take your temperature, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Matt?
We're looking forward to things getting a little more back to normal and being able to come in and see you guys. For now, I think, like Brad said, this is an excellent way to talk to you guys a little bit and to reach you.
Yeah, I hope this is a format everybody liked. I know I actually kind of had some fun with it. I would like to do more of these. I'd like to see us do more on some different topics. Because it's new and because it's fresh, I'm absolutely open to ideas. If you have topics that you'd like us to discuss or anything like that, feel free to shoot us a message. Again, reach out to your technology consultant, specialist, any contact you have. If you don't have it, call our 1-800 number, 1-800-228-2790. The receptionist will get you in touch with someone. We want to hear from you. We look forward to helping our customers very much. I am not 100% sure how to wrap this baby up. I know Jeremy's having some mic problems, so I think we're just going to ride off quietly into the sunset, and I will see you guys at our next episode. Again, sign up for our emails. Make sure you're watching out for that. I am 99.9% sure that is going to be on the topic of dealing with obsolescence in your factory. And then hopefully we can have some fun with Q&A time and sort of run down these rabbit holes as well. So thank you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next episode.
Stay safe.